Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Monday after the Sunday after the Thursday that marked one of the great sports weekends in my lifetime. A weekend that saw the Phillies make it to the World Series, the fourth, I believe, of my lifetime, and the Philadelphia Union make it to the Eastern Conference semifinal or the Eastern Conference finals for the second year of the row. And Manchester United beat Spurs during the week and did not lose to Chelsea on the weekend. Oh, yeah. And by the way, in there sometime where I found an opportunity to go and see Hamilton in Baltimore on Friday. Very much worth the watch. So great weekend for me. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you can hear my voice or see my face, you know it is time once again for the worst 120 minutes or so in all of sports. That's right. It is time once again for the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. I am joined this week after, man, I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. My faithful partner in all things podcasting, producer Stead. How goes it, my friend?
It's going pretty good. Sadly, school was closed today, and my son decided to destroy my little office nook I have here. It's strewn with toys in the background. But at least I got the empty cups and juice bottles and wrappers out of there before it came on the screen. But other than that, it's good to be alive. It's good to be alive. I'm doing well.
Were you hosting an elementary school child on their day off or a frat party? Because it sounds like the same exact thing.
Pretty much. One of his buddies came over too and proceeded to ram their toys into each other I don't know. I didn't care either.
Again,
you know what the best thing was?
Very much like a frat.
Sounds like a frat party. Yep.
And you know what though? I didn't have to entertain them. That's even better.
Well, my whole entire office space was destroyed and filled with empty cups and toys that they had proceeded to ram into each other for hours.
Right. Yep.
Sounds like a frat party.
Yep. Frat party. Well, maybe so. Not my kind of frat party. I know that.
I'm just saying. I wasn't in a frat, so I wouldn't know.
Actually, in a frat. G, are you in a frat? I'm in a frat.
Yeah, I'm in a frat. Was in a frat. I wasn't a frat. So
I said the same thing. I was in a frat.
Well, because they're like, hey, we want you to be a president. We want you to do. I go, I'm here to party. I don't want to do any of that stuff. So I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm out. So like, more or less, it was one of those things. So yeah, I was in there for a year and a half. Did my fun, but yeah.
I was about a year and a half, and then it was like, all right. I'll see y'all later.
It's the same parties I can go to without being a part of the frat, and why am I doing this? But whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But definitely never had those experiences where people were playing with toys, shoving things, cups, and things were disappearing. I don't know. Never had those kind of frat parties. So no. I don't know what Mike kind of thinks about frat happens, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what you see in movies is one thing. That's all I'm going to say.
The devil is a lie. How goes it down there in the NOLA?
Things are beautiful down here, man. The weather's getting real beautiful, like 80 degrees in the daytime. The humidity's gone, about 60 degrees at night. So get the windows wide open finally. The lady and I went to our first, I just want to say Mardi Gras or the parade season parade, but we went to our Crew of Boo parade where it was like a Halloween theme, and it's very interesting. Like we love in NOLA, they love the parades for anything. So I think next weekend is the gay Halloween parade, and that's gonna be interesting. So a lot of things happening down here in New Orleans.
I bet that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah,
I can imagine the floats and just the pageantry and everything like that. I bet it's going to be awesome. You guys,
a lot of satire. Yes, a lot of satire.
You kept us posted last year on a lot of it goings on with your first Mardi Gras. So I'd love to get some more pictures because those were pretty wild.
Hey, I'm just saying, when Mike comes down here, he will see that when on our porch, Mardi Gras parades are right like 20 feet in front of us, like legit. So any of you guys are all more than welcome to come down during Mardi Gras season, seeing the parade, but legit. We are on the route. We got super lucky right
man.
Now,
I'll probably be in Atlanta in 2024. That's a much easier. I can just hop in the car and be there for the weekend, man.
Yes, sir. All right, baby. We got to do another lease on this place for another 2 years. So we're gonna have people coming down. So, but legit, it's a real cool place. But yeah, right now the weather's getting beautiful. Right now at the high school, I'm restarting up the soccer program. So I'm really excited for doing that. The Warren Easton was a huge, I guess you want to say, powerhouse back before Katrina happened, and mean, since Katrina, soccer kind of fell to the wayside. So me being my second year there, I see an opportunity to kind of bring this love back to this beautiful community that I work in right now. So a lot of things are doing real good right now in New Orleans, man. So welcome to my neighborhood, guys. Things are going well.
Well, gentlemen, maybe not the best weekend for y'all's beloved Arsenal, but we still got to take things in stride. Yet another week goes in the books, and yet another week that sees Arsenal and the weekend at the top of the table. And each week that goes by, that's one more or two more rounds of fixtures down that sees this team still at the top, still in the Champions League positions. And even though they dropped points from a winning position, only their first draw of the season. So they maintain a 1-point lead over Manchester City. Now we'll talk to Larry a little bit later about Man City and Erling Haaland, who can't seem to stop scoring. But instead, if I had given you 11 games into the season, almost to the point where we're at about a quarter of the season, we're past a quarter of the season done. You know, we're getting into that realm where we're talking about a third of the season or so over with. And I had told you that Arsenal would be sitting top of the table. Their one lone draw would be a pretty. I mean, they didn't look great at times, but they shot themselves in the foot a little bit against Southampton, and a tactical loss more so than anything else to Manchester United. You'd have to be happy with where things were right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, say what you want. You're going to drop points, especially on the road, and you're going to drop points to play to teams like Southampton, where they basically turned it into a scrap, especially in the second half. They were just grabbing and throwing, like they were doing everything they could to try to salvage a point. And you know what? If I was in 19th place, or if I was now down to the bottom, you're basically a heartbeat above the relegation zone. I don't blame them. I don't. It's frustrating when it happens to your club, but also you're seeing that a team that took their foot off the gas, that seemed to kind of like get a little lost if they got beat up a little bit. You saw some of that Arsenal of old when they play against a team like Stoke, who would kind of like manhandle them a bit, and Arsenal just couldn't seem to bounce back from it. You saw a bit of that, but they would lose those games. Now they're getting a draw. So it's still a point. It's still an away point, and it's still an away point at a place that's not the easiest place to play. So is it disappointing? Yeah, but Arsenal's had a dip in form the last couple of games. They haven't looked very good. I mean, they really haven't. I think the players are getting tired. I think that it's about time to start rotating some other bodies in there. And maybe you don't want to do that in the Premier League, but I think if you could, you do it against the Southampton squad. And we got this upcoming game against PSV. Arsenal's pretty much firmly in the driver's seat in Europa League. They can go ahead and do a rotation here. You don't need to play Bukayo Saka. I mean, get Nketiah some more time. Give Jesus a break. He's been playing a lot, and he may not be scoring a lot, but he's doing so much on the field. If you see his output is absolutely tremendous. So no one wants to see your team drop points against a team that's in the bottom half, even the bottom quarter of the league. But these types of things happen, and I think that the difference I'm seeing this time from Arsenal fans is there isn't that outcry of anger and dissension against the coach or just dumping on players. And there's still the occasional guy who can't seem to get over Granit Xhaka being angry 4 years ago. Get over it. That guy is having the best season of his career right now, and we all should be eating a bit of crow for what we were saying about him and wanting him out of the club. I know I am. I know I will, and I've been saying it for a couple of weeks. Line it up. I'll eat it. I deserve it. And he has been. I would say he's been our best player this year, from what he's been providing, because I see a noticeable difference when he's not on the field. That guy is having a great year. And I'm not sure, is Switzerland in the World Cup? I don't even remember. I don't even pay attention. Well, hopefully they get knocked out in the group stage, because I'm hoping he doesn't take a knock, because he often plays very well for Switzerland. So I think the team is still, though, they're still average age is 23.7 years. They're still growing. They're still gelling. And yeah, I think if you ask any Arsenal fan that you're going to be 9-1-1 after 11 games, I mean, we wouldn't have believed you.
Hey, Gabby Jesus is coming off of yet another game in where he doesn't score. The goals have dried up for him a little bit as of recent, as Stead mentioned. He still does a lot of stuff on the forward line. He attracts a lot of attention. The goals may not necessarily be going in for him at the moment, but what he is able to do is create space and opportunities for the other forward attackers to get in positions where they can score. And that has been key to what Arsenal has done. I think his movement and everything else has added uh, a bit of a different dimension. Now, we have seen Gabby Jesus go through these kind of runs where he just doesn't score goals. And
Yeah, he gets his
perhaps,
dry spells. Absolutely.
and that is one of the reasons why he is currently playing for Arsenal, not leading the line for Man City, is his, tendency to go through dry spells. Now, every striker is going to have some games where they don't score, but he can have ones that may last a little bit longer.
Yep.
How concerned, if at all, are Arsenal fans regarding this latest dry spell for Gabby right now?
Well, I can only speak for this Arsenal fan right now, but it just seems like we're okay with this because other people are producing. Where years before we only had one guy, and it was like Lacazette, who's not a pure scorer, and we're betting all our game on his shoulders to score, and he's not doing it. With Jesus and the first couple of games, yeah, he was getting busting up, he was scoring goals left and right. But until you get more film on him, and then all of a sudden you see now defenses kind of changing their kind of formation and their kind of tactics around him, which now they're closing him down, which are preventing him to score, which now will open up the game for other players. So right now he needs to be kind of patient, be that kind of hold up guy, maybe be assist guy, may cause some havoc. But right now he needs to kind of lean on other people until it's his turn again. We saw that in Man City, but Man City's got so many weapons compared to Arsenal, even over the years, that they could rely on anyone to score, where Arsenal, we can rely on 2 or 3 people. But looking at the first couple of games, yeah, he was good. The system worked. But like with any other team, with any other sport, once you got film on them, you can start breaking them down. You can see the tendencies. You can see what they're trying to do. It's really easy to defend. So what now Arteta needs to do is he needs to change up his formation a little bit, maybe his game plan a little bit. We'll be fine. And, dropping those 2 points, I see it in my eyes, to Southampton. But Southampton has always kind of plagued us in a very kind of weird way. It's always a 1-0, 2-1 scrapping game.
But
it's always scrappy. Yeah, it's always been scrappy, though. And it's just one of those kind of games I even said on the text messages, like, I'm kind of scared about, not scared, but this team has always kind of got me a little nervous. And here's an example. Yeah, we didn't play our best game. We didn't have our best players in there. However, our quality of team right now, and like Sted said, normally we would have lost, but now since our quality is better this year, we tied. So right there, we kind of see some positives. And last year, I'm all like, hey, we're going to do well this year because we have all these games that we're not playing and we're rested and blah, blah. Now we're playing these extra games, and now we're seeing a young team being injured. So it's part of just kind of this growing experience of Arsenal to this ultimate goal where we are, where the club wants to be. So yes, if we most of our players, and especially right now, Jesus is going to be the number 1 for Brazil. Please get out the first round. And I agree with that. If we can have all our players in this international break just go home quite early, that's going to be so beneficial for us. But, right now we have these extra games. We got PSV. We did a decent 1-0 against them the other day. And like I said, we should have this group pretty locked up pretty darn soon. And even if we lose against PSV, we're still sitting pretty darn good right now where we can rest these players. And one thing I didn't put in our message string, I don't remember if I did not, I am not really a big fan of Matt Turner. I am not liking what I'm seeing from him. He looks kind of scared. Doesn't look like he's very clean. He's not the quality of keepers that we've seen America produce over the last several decades. Matt Turner, for some reason, he just doesn't fit for me on this team, on Arsenal. I would love to see him on Man U. I'd love to see him on Chelsea. I'd love to see him on any other team, but us as a second, as a backup. So I just hope that that everyone is going to be healthy from moving on forward. And especially Ramsdale, he seems like he's really commanding the presence, the box back there. Doesn't seem like Turner has that yet. So I don't know. I've seen a couple of games with him. I'm not really impressed, more scared than impressed. But let's throw him to the Wolves right now. Yeah. But let's get him to the PSV games. Let's get him to these Leeds United. I hate saying Leeds United because they're always tough. Let's a should win kind of game. Yeah. Let's throw him in there. We always need our backups to have playing time, but also preserve our starters. We need to preserve them as long as we can. It's a long season. Here we are, game 12 or something like that, game 11 of the season. Mm-hmm. We still got a huge, long way to go. It's only end of October. We've all the way through May and a World Cup, and then so we have a long time.
We haven't started the FA Cup yet.
Yeah, right. So we have another tournament. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but thankfully, Arsenal is a very young team that our turnaround and our bounce back is pretty quick. And it's kind of funny to watch or to look on ESPN and they're saying, "Oh, Arsenal, why isn't Arsenal scared or isn't it such a big deal dropping points?" You told me that last year, I'd be freaking out. Like, we need every single point. But right now, Arteta's got a little special thing going on. He's got a bigger game plan. And it's working. So if he ain't worried, I ain't worried. So I'm just going to sit back and just kind of watch this process. So far, he's proven to us as fans, he's turned the ship around. And so I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this first place right now. Enjoy the success that we've had and just kind of keep on going. If we drop even into fourth place overall and do semi-decent this year in all the tournaments, we're good. Like, it's a victory. That's a step up. And it's all we need to do is baby steps. And like we've talked, like Sean said, but we're a year, maybe a year and a half away from being really, really good. Mm-hmm. We're in this process right now. We're seeing some really, really good stuff that hopefully we'll get some of these strikers, some of these bigger names attracted to us. So we'll see. But right now, I'm happy, man. Nola and myself are happy right now.
I agree 100%. And I think that, what the fan base is showing is that even with the early success, we're not a victim of that success where we're expecting out of the world. I still see a very level-headed fan base that's saying, this is great. We're moving in the right direction. This is great. We have to keep going. And then when something like this happens where you see a bump in the road, you're not screaming to the hills asking why. That's not the vibe I'm getting. And I'm just seeing I'm seeing a group of people who are finally proud to be supporting their team in a manner again, because they realized they all knew what the problem was. We had so much dead weight on the squad from bad moves that were made post Arsene Wenger. That really was a problem. The players that were being signed were getting contracts that were way, way more exorbitant than they deserved. And I'm not only speaking about Mesut Ozil. So you saw a lot of cleanup. There was a lot of hangnails that were cut. A lot of nails were trimmed to just even up the manicure a bit. And I think now we're seeing the positives of that. And yes, Arsenal's going to drop more points. Arsenal's going to hit that bump in the road. We haven't played Chelsea. We haven't played Manchester City yet. So, we had a good game against Liverpool. Yeah. But, and the Spurs game was good. Yeah. We won those games. That's great. But Arsenal has struggled mightily against the top six. Struggled mightily. We've played half of them and we got 2 wins and a loss. I'll take it. So far. It's success. So even if we can get a point from Chelsea, from the Chelsea game and the Man City game, if we can just get a point, when you look at how the team has been in the past just couple of seasons, that would be, out of 5 games out of 15 points, you can get 7 or 8 points. That's not bad. And those are all things that are positive. So I think that we are still moving in the right direction. And, I think it also tells you that when you're playing against a side that's struggling, you got to be prepared for the shoulder blocks. You got to be prepared to get grabbed. You got to be prepared for all that. Jesus should have gone down when he had those arms on his shoulders because the guy was hugging him. I applaud him for trying to fight it off, but come on, go down. It was the same play that was called against McTominay against Chelsea. It was the same play. So was it Chelsea? I think so.
Oh yeah, against Chelsea this weekend.
Yeah. It was the same sort of grab, and again, Jesus didn't go down. It was a different situation. It was a different play because it was a different build-up. So you can fault the defender. You can get angry about that. Blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is that you drew against a team that was worse than you. That's very, very desperate. Shake it off. Put it in the rear view. Get out of there with a point and go back home, prepare for next week.
Like you said, the idea of any team, not Man City, not or Liverpool from the days of yore, going on one of these runs where they win 20 games in a row is kind of far-fetched.
Yeah.
That they dropped points at Southampton, not the best. But I think the difference is here was a position where Arsenal dropped points from a losing position against Southampton, where they are rightly going to be mad. And I think that Arteta is actually going to get a response, which they will need in the next couple of weeks. I kind of feel a little bit bad for Nottingham Forest, who is their opponent on Sunday. I'm a bit concerned. Now, if they slip up and pull Liverpool and lose to Nottingham Forest at home, we're going to be having a slightly different conversation.
We will, and we should. We should,
because
the response is that's what kept Arsenal out of the top four last year. Was the response to bad losses? They did not respond well, and they ended up dropping 3 straight, which basically kicked them out. When they basically had a top four pretty solid. So if they do lose next week, we're having a different conversation, and we should.
Look, the fact of the matter is, I don't think over the course of the next 14 days, 18 days, which is all that we have until the World Cup break starts, and then you won't get another Premier League game until Boxing Day. Right? You can't win. I don't think that you can say realistically you can win the league again unless you're Manchester City between now and then. I don't think that you can qualify for Europe between now and then. I do think that you can put yourself in a position where you're going to make it a whole lot harder or a whole lot easier. And if you do go into that break, which is essentially 2 more games, right? 2 more Premier League games left before the World Cup. And you're looking and you say you're on 28 points now. If you go in with a record of, say, 11-1-1 or 10-2-1, right? And you're sitting at, 31, 32, 34 points. Look, that's putting yourself in a really, really solid position at this point in the season to, at a minimum, contend for the Champions League. Now, the one thing that I will say is these games are going to come thick and fast the longer that you are in all competitions. I wonder if, in the interest of challenging for Champions League success, Mikel Arteta, like a lot of people, makes some business decisions. And this is not a Miguel Arteta thing. I think a lot of teams are going to need to take a look at this because you've got the third round of the Cup coming up, the EFL Cup coming up on November 9th, which is the only round that will be played before Christmas, when essentially you'll be competing the EFL Cup and the FA Cup along with the latter stages of the Europa League with the league all at one time. So pretty much from December through May, you're going to be playing, every 3 days.
Right.
Right. Is this a time to make a business decision and say, you know what? Our aspirations are better than the Europa League. The best that we can get out of this particular trophy, and by the way, I've won a couple. The best that we can get out of this is a Europa League place. Maybe here's where I rotate the guys because I know I'm going to need them later.
Right. Yeah.
We haven't even seen him do as much rotation as I think he could have.
Agreed. And that's been a knock. That was a knock on him. That was a knock on him last week, where they were saying, the PSV game was not an essential game. You were on 9 points, they were on 7 points, and you could have easily sort of navigated around that, especially considering that was a rescheduled game. And why are you still playing Bukayo Saka? And Arteta gets bristly when he gets questioned by the media, but yeah, I think that. But you make a very, very, very valid point, and this is one thing that G was just discussing about rotating your players, because the fatigue is going to be a factor. And is Arsenal squad deep enough to rotate and still be successful? Well, the answer to that question really is sort of. Sort of. So you look at the EFL. You look at the EFL Cup. the Carabao Cup. Maybe Arsenal should just get bounced the first round.
Yeah,
Mhm.
agree.
Just
Get rid of them. Yep.
just put out, here's your Matt Turner game. Put in some of your reserve kids and just say, look, if y'all win, great, you get another game. If you don't, we're out of a club that most teams don't really care that much about anyway. So it's not that big of a deal. Yeah.
Get your U21s in there. Like, get them experience. Right. Like, who cares? Like, scrap them, but get all those non-players something. Right. But I agree with you. Get rid of these tournaments and move on.
You're going to have to make those reservations. There's really only one team a year that doesn't have to do that. You get, occasionally you'll see a Real Madrid run. You'll see a Manchester United treble run. You'll see a Barcelona will do something like that. Sorry, Bayern, I'm not putting you there because outside of this year, your league's been pretty damn easy for you. So you don't need to worry about it so much. But, you've seen City has tried time and time again, and they have failed. They've never been able to do it. So the closest we saw was Liverpool getting to 4 finals last year, which was extraordinarily impressive. It was extraordinarily impressive. And they won 2. But they won 2 kind of like, I say final because they were in the final stages of the Premier League. But they won the FA Cup and the FL Cup. So it's like, okay, you didn't win the big boys. So you didn't win Champions League. You didn't win the Premier League. But
FA Cup, yay.
But you saw though. But you see, you really don't. I think it's safe to say that level of run that Liverpool went on last year, because if they didn't win, they played all the games. They played all the games to get to those finals. Even though you didn't win, look at what's happened to you this year.
Yep.
You guys
and we've been saying this for how long?
You're injured.
Yeah, we've been saying they played too much. They've been too much over the year after year after year. And yes, they're young men. They're eventually going to fall apart. They're eventually get injuries. Like we've been talking this for so long. Yeah. It's too much soccer for them. It's too much expecting so high performance all the time. It's
and
again, 4 finals. Is it worth it?
Liverpool. I applaud Liverpool tremendously for last season. I thought that was a phenomenal season for them. That was amazing. I don't think very, very, very few teams, and I'm not talking about a club. I'm talking about a team for one particular year. Very few teams are going to be able to actually do that. You're talking like 99 Manchester United. Like that's the kind of stuff you're talking about. And that's once a decade.
Yeah. We have seen, if you could, we have seen 3 trebles, right? Mm-hmm. We've seen Barcelona do it under Pep Guardiola. Mm-hmm. We've seen Bayern do it. Mm-hmm. Now, the difference is with Bayern and Barcelona, they play fewer cup games, right? Because the Copa del Rey and the DFB Pokal function a lot different. Also add into the fact that
they don't have a 4th trophy either.
They don't have a 4th trophy, so that's another tournament that they don't have to have take a run.
League Cup.
Number 1. Number 2,
stupid tournaments.
Bayern are going to play 34 as opposed to 38 games.
Yep, that's true.
A season because
very true.
Bundesliga is 18, not 20 teams. Right. So both of them play, and then we've seen Manchester United do it in '98. Now,
right? Inter got close one year. I think that was it. During that 5-year run where they were just killing it, Italy. I think that was, and they didn't do it though. They got close. Yeah.
But the other thing about Man United is everybody talks about the fact that they won that treble, but you got to remember they went out very early in the EFL Cup that year.
Yeah, they did.
A couple of years later in the 08-09 season, we saw them do it. 9. We saw them do it kind of again, but they went out again. They won the EFL Cup. They went to the semifinals or the quarterfinals. They only made it as far as the quarterfinals of the FA Cup before they got bounced, winning the league and going to the Champions League final while playing the Club World Cup in the middle of it. And the next year, Cristiano Ronaldo left, and they were down. They started the year with a lot of injuries, much in the same way that we're seeing with Liverpool this year. And it is clear, a team that we said 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago was struggling. And, okay, Virgil van Dijk is out. We see how much he means. We're going to be surprised if he's able to come back to the level that he does from that knee injury, guess what? He did. He was amazing. That said, yeah, I agree with you, gentlemen. We need to talk about the fact that Liverpool is.
And where's Mo Salah? He's not put up the goals that he did last year. So,
but this is a team that I don't think they realized just how much it needed an injection. They were thinking that they could do a Real Madrid, Barcelona. We built up enough of a core right now that we could just, replace one, maybe two players a year, like a Bayern Munich does, and keep things ticking. And it doesn't work like that. Like, these guys get older unless you have a strong youth program, which, no disrespect to Liverpool, they brought through some young players, but I just don't think that the young players have developed quite as quickly as they needed them to. You've seen streaky players like Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson go off the boil a little bit. Virgil van Dijk has been left out to hang a lot, which has led to them conceding goals that I don't think they normally would. Darwin Nunez is not a replacement for Sadio Mane. And, he may well at some point in time become that article, but he's coming from the Portuguese league. It's a completely different bird playing in the Premier League. We've seen guys who have been prolific scorers in Portugal and Netherlands come to the Premier League and have trouble with the pace and physicality of the game and take a couple of years to bed in. Diogo Jota, I think, has been in and out of the lineup hurt.
Yeah.
Luis Diaz, I think, is injured or has been in and out of the lineup. The midfield has been inconsistent. They brought in Arteta thinking that he was going to be a great answer and a cheap kind of effective answer based on his talent to a midfield problem, and he has been anything but and will likely be returned in short order, maybe not even making it the full season before going back to Juve, which is fine, but it still leaves them with a hole in the midfield that they need to fill out, and they just don't have it like they used to. And what we're seeing is a team that, yeah, it is capable of putting a 7-1 beating on somebody, but I don't think they're capable of doing it consistently enough. And when you go out and you put a 7-1 beating on a team like they did, and then go out and lose the next game to Nottingham Forest, it raises a few questions about where you are. And, if Matt or British Will were on, and I looked at them right now and I said, you're the 8th place team in the league. And it's hard to argue that you're the 8th best team in the league, because on points, you are the 8th best team in the league, and you have lost to a Manchester United team that was in complete crisis at that moment.
At that time, yep.
And you have lost to Nottingham Forest in a manner in which you were just totally unable to gain points. They have just lost some real head scratchers. And I know, yeah, they're the only team that has beaten Man City.
Yeah, and a couple of draws, though. They've had a couple of they've been drawing too, yeah.
They're dropping points, and it's like, okay, yeah, you can get the guys together to go to Man City and figure out a game plan for that because it's Man City, but I'm going to need you to beat Nottingham Forest. I mean, that's what's going to get you into the Champions League. It's not whether or not you beat Man City, because let's be honest, I don't think the title's in the cards this year for them. Like I said, I don't know if you can win the league by Veterans Day, but I definitely know that you can put yourself in a tough position where you're pretty much out of it.
Yeah.
And it looks like right now, Liverpool are very much out of it. And it looks like this window is going to be extremely interesting, right? And here's another thing that we need to talk about. Klopp isn't somebody who necessarily has proven in the past to have an appetite for rebuilding squads. When he got to the point where the core of the players that he was able to retain at Borussia Dortmund uh, grew out and aged out, and they were out of Europe. He managed to get them back into Europe, but he resigned and left. Took a couple of years off, came to Liverpool. He's not displayed at any point in time the willingness to rebuild a squad, and that's what he's going to need to do if he's going to need to stay there. I don't care how they finish this year. I don't care if they go on this miraculous run that gets them to the Champions League finals. They win they win everything. Look, the first half of the season has taught me that this team has issues that they need to rebuild, and they need some reinforcements. And anything you do is just going to be papering over the cracks that are manifestly there.
The Arsenal went through this too, where they couldn't keep the team healthy. And you've seen Arsenal's had more games lost, more first-team players have lost games in the past 10 years for Arsenal than any of the other Premier League clubs. And I believe, I'm not sure it was second place, but they're way far behind Arsenal. But you saw that lack of depth meant that you're playing Sead Kolasinac when you probably shouldn't be. You're hanging on to Shkodran Mustafi when you really should have let him go. So, and then, you can see Arsenal taking a flyer on a guy like Henrik Mkhitaryan, who had some good flashes at Manchester United, but isn't going to come in and change the fortunes of your team. He did for Arsenal,
I can get that move because that was.
I totally got the move, and I actually like the move because that move was exactly what Arsenal needed to keep them from falling even lower. But what I'm saying though is, Liverpool doesn't see themselves as that type of a squad. They don't see themselves as a team that's going to be okay with finishing fifth. And yet, not now, but that's what is likely to happen if you see that channel going on when you're not able to handle the players who are just breaking down because of the number of games you've been playing.
Yeah, we've got a newbie in the top six. It's going to be Newcastle.
Yeah, but
they're going to drop.
Well, I wanted to talk about them. That's the team nobody wants to play now.
I think I had them
I don't want to play them.
I think I had them fifth overall, but yeah, they look very tough right now.
No, that team.
And when I look at the actual standings, it looks like a standings from about mid-1980s. We got Fulham up top. We have Newcastle up top. We have Brighton up top, like West Ham. Like it looks like an old-ass kind of thing.
Have you seen the games, though? You're seeing the Newcastle team from the early parts of the Premier League. That's what you're seeing from the fan base. You're seeing the excitement. But also what's great, though, about this is you're seeing the Miguel Almiron they thought they were getting from Atlanta United. You're seeing him now. He's looking great. He's looking like a really, really, really solid move, and they stuck with him. And I'm glad they stuck with him because he's playing really well. And every time you see a player move from MLS and play as well as he's playing now in Premier League, it's only good for MLS players.
Well, let's go ahead and bring in.
When you're from South America, we're from South America.
Let's bring in Los because it was his Newcastle team that played, or his first team that played Newcastle at the weekend. And Los, we're talking about Newcastle being the breaking into that top four, and unfortunately they did it at Spurs' expense. So we'll get your thoughts on where Spurs stand because I have my thoughts as well. But what did you think about this Newcastle team and their chances of sticking and hanging around the upper echelons of the Premier League for this season?
Well, the result is they won. To be honest, the goal that was scored that made it 1-0 should have been a foul. If it's at midfield, it's a foul. If it's a forward doing this, a defender doing this to a forward, it's a penalty kick. If it's in the other end zone, any goalkeeper is going to expect the referee to call the foul that was committed on Lloris, and to say that there was no foul would just, what the heck is soccer anymore? What are the rules? Because there was no attempt to play the ball. Lloris had played it past the man, and then he was essentially blockaded from going through, and that to me is a foul. That's an illegal charge. You're allowed to charge shoulder to shoulder. Ain't no way. He went like shoulder into chest. That's what he did. So, and then he scored a goal after it, and it was ridiculous. And then they said there was no foul. Well, you know what? The fix is in, right? Not just Italy. Looks like England too. But anyway, So enough
You
about
must be a
that.
Liverpool fan too. It's a conspiracy
Say what?
against Liverpool people. So you must be a Liverpool fan too, because it's always conspiracy against the league and Liverpool. So now we have a league.
Well,
in
Liverpool,
Tottenham,
they had their chance. They won their title, but now it's the excuse of the week with Klopp. What was that one meme that I sent? The grass is greener than
a
it was
shade
at
greener.
Anfield.
That was funny.
But Los, it was really good to see though. Even after a loss, you still celebrate with a Newcastle beer. I'm glad you just drank that sorrow down, man.
I haven't had a Newcastle beer in probably about 10 years. I don't do brown ales. I'm doing the cream ales, man. Kill Kenny.
I'll leave that one alone with the cream.
And before we forget, gentlemen, we have to congratulate our good friend Los on his retirement.
Oh, that's right.
Happy retirement from teaching, man.
You joining me, Los?
Officially signed the papers last week. Last day is this week, Friday. Matter of fact, if you give me a second, I think I have an actual number for you. I'll get your number in a minute. Anyway, but yeah,
you had the retirement clock. Now you kind of reset.
I know, man. I was like, wait a minute. I thought you saw like 4 years left. You were like,
right. I had to reset it though. It's only 3 days, 18 hours, and 29 minutes.
Good for you, man.
So
Good for you.
Good for you, man.
That's when it happens. And then I got a week off and I start a new career. I have I developed skill sets over the years that fit in this particular company, and they hired me on, and I start work on November 7th.
Nice.
So congratulations.
I get to work with the missus. That's the really cool thing.
And a pay raise.
We get to carpool together. We come back, so we get to fight over the radio on the way too, and on the way back from work. Who's got the radio? Well, drivers rules.
I'll be working with my missus too. Once we make the transition.
I would like to point out Elgato's expression when you said that you get to work with the missus, and she kind of just looked at you and was like, "Oh crap."
Here we go. They're gonna leave me again.
Yep.
Los, I am looking at this play again. Now I understand where you're saying that it's a foul. The one thing I will say is, it is chess, but Callum Wilson's kind of I'll play devil's advocate and say Callum Wilson's standing his ground. It is outside of the goalkeeper's box, and Lloris runs into Callum Wilson.
But he's impeding the player playing the ball. So regardless of what he's doing, where he's at, if he's not playing the ball, it's a foul. We were taught as referees that you don't get it. It's not like basketball where you get to hold that position. It's if you are impeding someone else from playing the ball, you're at fault. And that's what we were taught back when I went to referee school back in the 70s. So unless they decided they no longer want to call that sort of thing, it's like they were penalizing Lloris for making a lousy play. Let me put it that way. Lloris, the play was lousy. He never should have played it like that. Never should have come out that far, blah, 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 all that. Nevertheless, he was fouled, but the foul wasn't called. And I'm telling you, any goalkeeper is going to say, hey, why wasn't that foul called? Regardless of what team you support, if you're a goalkeeper, you want the foul called. And that's just the way it is. So I'm done talking about that. So my ranting isn't going to get us anywhere.
2 consecutive losses now for Antonio Conte's team. And 2 consecutive losses where, again, they have looked conservative. They've looked out of sorts moving forward, and been unable to keep teams out. They've conceded pressure. They've allowed they've conceded possession by sitting back and allowed teams to put consistent pressure that has led to goals. The Manchester United game on Thursday, why that team with a team that has Son and Harry Kane wasn't able to put more pressure on a back four of United that, while it is played well at times, is far from this finished article defensively, and conceded the pressure and was content to sit in that back four. We saw them, yes, Lloris made a bad play, but again, that was a result of pressure from the Newcastle attackers that they were putting on the back four that again forced or the back five, back three, whatever it is that Conte's playing there, that forced them to make bad plays, bad decisions. And again, they weren't able to get the ball with any consistency up to Son and Kane. And you've got these two world-class attackers sitting at one end of the field who just aren't getting any sort of service right now. Nothing's going in for them. Something's got to give, because I know that Antonio Conte said, he needs money, he needs time. The only way that you're going to get time and money is if you manage to get something out of what you got. And look, the Spurs have been a team that has gone out and gotten players and spent a little bit of money when it's there to spend, and they see that they're getting someplace with it. But right now, you're not at Chelsea, you're not at Man City. The finances of Spurs, especially with the new stadium, are a little bit on the thinner side. I don't know what he's helping get, but he needs to figure it out, or he's going to get neither of them, and neither time nor money nor patience, because by the World Cup break he's going to be out on his, I don't know what the Italian word for ass is.
I don't know either. I'll defer to Pat. I don't know.
Oh, yes.
I cannot say this on podcasts and media, nothing. So I'm going to watch my mouth.
All right. Okay. No problem.
A good Christian right now.
So, okay. You're not wrong, Mikey. However, Conte is not out by the World Cup. I don't care what's happening. I can tell you right now, it's definitely showing the fact that we did not have Pierre-Emile Højbjerg playing last match. Also, Dejan Kulusevski has been out with an injury that now is going to take him out until after the new year. So those two pieces of the puzzle, not having those two pieces of the puzzle, that really hurts us. Especially, I don't know. I mean, Højbjerg is pretty solid in the midfield, and Bentancur, God bless him, he has picked up the mantle and taken charge, and actually had a really good match this past match, very quietly, making his mark in the midfield at Spurs. But losing Kulusevski for so long, that guy is a playmaker. He knows how to spark an offense, and always look forward to seeing him on the field. So that's what part of the problem is, and that's where you're going to find the solution to our woes presently in the midfield. So that's of course, with those two guys out, the other guys need to step up, and Bentancur has from Uruguay. He's really solid. In fact, my next kit has Bentancur in the back, just so you know. It's coming. It's in Malmo, Sweden. I don't know why they have to send to Malmo, Sweden, then it comes to the States. I don't know how they do that or why they did it. But anyway, it's on its way. But that's what's up with Spurs. The midfield is lacking a couple of solid players, and it's definitely, there's a hole in the lineup the size of Højbjerg and Kulusevski, no doubt.
Now, this weekend is an interesting one. You've got Bournemouth, and they have had their moments where they've been tough to beat at times. Not winning everything, but they picked up their fair share of draws, and so the schedule leading up to the World Cup sees you get Bournemouth, Liverpool, and Leeds. Those are a couple of teams that are fighting for their lives, and it's easy to say, oh well, given where everything is right now, Spurs should win all of them, but there's got to be some concern.
Well, I'm not saying we're not concerned. We're definitely concerned, and you have to beat the competition that's in front of you. You can't win any of these games on paper. So nobody's saying that's where we're at, and that we're destined to win these. You still got to go out and play. You got to beat your competition, whoever that might be. Like I said, we just need to get healthy, and we'll be back. We'll be back to what the form we have been seeing before these injuries. Hopefully, will come back and revisit us.
So, gentlemen, now we are going to take a slightly rightward turn and move. Oh,
He took off.
Yeah, I was.
G took off. I was about to give the Hetafe report.
I was about to talk to him about Serie A, and he like dipped on me. Bounced.
Well, if he's not here to talk Serie A, I'll go ahead and talk about La Liga.
Yes. As far as Serie A goes, real quick, Napoli still topping the table, unbeaten in their opening 11 with 9 wins and 2 draws. Milan following up 3 points behind. Lazio, I guess a little bit of a surprise third. You have to go all the way down to 8th to find Juventus, and 2 points in front of them, Inter. So while one half of Milan is very happy, and we have the possibility of our first Southern Italian champion in, I don't know, 3,000 years. The other half of Milan, and certainly Turin, and one half of Turin, not exactly loving life right now. So really interesting haps there. Moving on to it's Real Madrid and Barcelona and La Liga.
At the
Oh,
top.
so, I'm shocked to find that this.
But third place is Atletico Madrid, and actually, they had a match this weekend. Atletico did for third place, essentially, when they played Real Betis. So the winner would take third place, and Atletico Madrid came out on top 2-1. We had and so now they're in third place. Betis actually almost drew that match with a late header off the crossbar with some pace. So that was an exciting moment, but wasn't to be. Atletico Madrid now is in third place. Only a few points there at 23 points, with Barcelona and 28 and Real Madrid with 31. So it can be, nothing's set in stone. It's only 11 matches in. We're about a third of the way in almost, so it's just we got more matches still yet to play. And with injuries, anything can happen. Matter of fact, Real Madrid actually looked kind of sloppy to begin with, and in fact they scored in the 6th minute. So let me just back off that comment just a little bit, because they did score in the 6th minute. Luka Modric believe it or not, he was open on the far side of the goal and just tapped it in. It was a nice play, nice solid goal. But they did concede a goal just after the half to our former Spurs guy, Eric Lamela, the Robona Puskas winner from a couple years ago. He scored a goal with the left foot outside of the foot, snuck it past Courtois, but it was but then the goal of the week, Verde, is what sealed the deal and made it 3-1 for the final. Fede Valverde, that goal was from outside the penalty area, probably about a good 5 yards outside the penalty area, and it was a rocket to the far side, hit it with the laces and kind of made it curl back around to sneak it inside the post. So it was an outstanding goal there. The Hetafe report real quick, because I know G's going to watch this later. He's going to want to know about Hetafe. Well, they drew today against Celta Vigo, and they are currently in 17th place with 10 points, 1 point above the relegation zone. And now to show you how tight it is on the bottom 10 of that league, the 12th place team, it has 12 points. Hetafe has 10 points. So if Hetafe can string together a couple wins, they're going to be, in the middle of the pack, if not even up in the top 10 of the league, possibly. I mean, it's amazing how this thing will turn around just by throwing a couple of victories together.
They are only 5 points off of Valencia in ninth.
Right, exactly.
The big news out of La Liga that just came a couple of hours ago. Villarreal and the Aston Villa coming to an agreement that will see Unai Emery, the former returning to the Premier League, the former manager of Arsenal, the former manager of Sevilla, and the former manager of PSG, returning to manage Aston Villa. Now, something that I will argue is a good move for Villa. I mean, Emery is a Europa League specialist. He's won the 3 times in a row with Sevilla, and then another time with Villarreal, their first European triumph, taking them all the way to the quarterfinals. Villarreal, the Yellow Submarine, taking them all the way to the quarterfinals of the Champions League last year. It is a statement of intent. He is a guy who's used to operating on a budget. He's able to get a team together that is able to compete, get into Europe, and then do well and be a very, very tough out. The football isn't always the most beautiful to watch. Very defensive oriented when he's playing with those sorts of teams, especially with Villarreal. They didn't score a whole lot. But from the La Liga perspective, Villarreal currently on 18 points, tied with Athletic Bilbao on points. Athletic ahead in 6th place, and only 2 points back of a Europa League spot from Real Betis. Villarreal is going to have to get a new manager, and I don't think that they're in the position where they're necessarily going to attract a like-for-like replacement for Unai Emery. Los, what does this mean for the prospects of Villarreal remaining competitive for Europe in La Liga this season?
Well, lacking the coach and the status of Emery is going to be hurting them for sure. I'm not even sure who they have pegged to replace him. It's going to be tough, and anytime you bring a new coach, especially after the season's begun, things can be kind of tentative. Sometimes it works out well, and other times it doesn't work out very well at all. So it's just one of those things. Villarreal coming off a win this weekend, but they were being coached by Emery. Can I talk about that game for just a minute? Villarreal versus Almeria. Villarreal won 2-1. So get this. Alex Baena had a yellow card earlier in the match, scores the equalizer in the 56th minute, and then in celebrating, he lifts his jersey up over his head, and not all the way off. He just lifts it up around his neck, and he has an undershirt underneath that is actually a tribute to another player underneath. And the referee gave him a second yellow for the celebration after he scored that goal. So Villarreal actually played with 10 men, and then they brought on a substitute shortly after that. Before that, they brought on the substitute Manu Morales, and he was sent off in the 58th minute. So they're playing with 9 men, and it's tied 1-1. And they finally were able to eke out a game winner in stoppage time. Nicholas Jackson with the goal. Playing with 9 men, it was something else. It's one of those things you kind of scratch your head. They play with 9 men, they still come out with the win. It's amazing. One of those weird things that you see every now and then in football, but it happens.
Hey, you gotta love it. All right, Los. Well, we want to thank you for coming on and joining us, giving us all the updates on what is going on, the good stuff that's happening on in La Liga and with Spurs. And we'll catch you next week.
Rock on, guys. We'll see you.
All right. So, Stead, I got to get your thoughts on this Unai Emery move to Aston Villa. Mm-hmm. I mean, I actually think it's a good move for Villa. I think it is a relatively decent move for Unai Emery. I mean, he's a person who has apparently realized what the level of his managerial success can be. And it is a club that is roughly the size and ambition of a Villa, where he's going to take over. There's certainly more money on offer. But the idea that he's going to need to win Champions League with Aston Villa, I think, is a little bit out there. My feeling on them is they're pretty content to just be a team like West Ham that can get into Europe and be competitive when they get there.
Yeah, it's like it's for a while there. Everton was the team that came in fifth all the time, or came in sixth or seventh, and I think that's Aston Villa's. Everton, Aston Villa, and to an extent Spurs were because there was a big three for a while in England, but to an extent Spurs were that other team, and where they weren't really a threat for relegation, but they probably weren't going to win a league either. So I think that's where Villa's looking, and that's actually Unai Emery's sweet spot. But let's not forget though, he actually did quite well at Arsenal at the start, and had he won that Europa League final, who's to say if we would have Mikel Arteta right now? So, the guy can manage in Europe. He's shown he can do that. He can manage a club that may not have the most talented players and still be successful. And, and as we noted on this show, if it wasn't for the language barrier, I mean, he may have done better. So hopefully he's improved on that. And his accent was just so heavy, it was just hard to understand. But I think it's a good move for definitely for Villa. I was like, oh wow, I thought they kind of pulled off one. I think that he is definitely a better manager than Steven Gerrard. I don't even think that's even close. And Unai is also coming in, and he'll build off of his Arsenal experience. He'll build off of what he's done previously in England, and I think he'll be marginally successful. I think this year all he has to do is just stay up. Just don't get relegated. That's all you got to do. Just don't get relegated. Make sure your squad finishes 14th, and then really kind of like go on for next season. But Villa's also proven that they don't mind spending some money. They'll spend some money, and I think that will bode well. I think it's just going to make really more interesting, because we've seen what happened with Newcastle and how they're looking like a team that's going to be competing for Europe spots. West Ham, while they haven't had the best season this year, I think they've just been a bit stake bitten. But let's see, West Ham's climbed back up to 10th when they were bottom of the table earlier in the year. So West Ham is still a relatively decent squad. You have quite a few decent squads that are mid-table. And, Everton won over the weekend. So you're looking at now, is it going to be more of an issue for those teams that are newly promoted to stay up even more so now? If you're seeing Villa doing what they're doing as far as the moves that they're making, you're seeing Newcastle is basically saying we're never going to be down in the championship again. You're seeing, now it's looking like your Brighton, your Brentfords of the world are going to be the ones that are going to kind of be bouncing back and forth, and maybe even Fulham. So,
well, I mean, I find it hard right now to say that Fulham. I know that Fulham has a game more than a lot of teams, but with 18 points in the bag,
it's good. Yeah.
Right now,
Agreed.
And 27 games left to play, to notch what I assume would be 22 points to see them up to 40, which is kind of the barrier for relegation.
And you have a guy who's scoring goals. Like Mitrovic is on 9 goals. This guy's banging them in. And
I will eat crow too, because I thought he was a championship
I thought
level.
it was a championship player. Yep. So did I. And
he's banging them in.
Yep.
And they are going to be a tough out.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to lie, they do have some tough games coming up. But they've shown a propensity for being able to handle the teams around them. But you're going to have a stretch going into the break, this international break, that's going to see them have to play their last 3 come up against Everton. Then they have to travel to Man City, and then they have Manchester United coming in the Craven Cottage.
Yep.
I mean, that's where it is, where you get the points from the teams around you that you can get.
Yep.
Right. And they still have a game against Chelsea that they need to make up. And so what it's been is they've been able to beat the teams in their neighborhood.
Right.
Which is what they need to do. And if you're going to be a team that's going to stay up, beat the teams in your neighborhood. That's what teams like Wolves, like Leeds, like Leicester haven't been able to do.
Right. Exactly. And Leicester's the interesting point too, because Leicester has looked pretty much horrible up until the last 4 games, though. They got 2 draws, 2 wins. So they're still at the bottom of the table, or Leicester's climbed out of the bottom of the table. They're now in 17th. And they've been oh, sorry, but they've won. They got their last 5 games. I'm sorry, I misread that. But they got 2 wins and then a draw and then a loss, and then they have they got another win. They looked like they were on their way to just being a complete dive. And I'd say outside of City, we're all expecting City to run away with this. Outside of that one fact, this is going to be a wild Premier League.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be wild, because I'm looking now going, do you think Wolves are going to stay the way they are? Wolves were, I mean, you're seeing that bottom half of the table is just going like this. West Ham was sitting in 19th and they're in 10th. Brighton was in 4th, but they've dropped down to 9th. They've had a skid in their form, but especially after their coach left. So I mean that might prove to be the. I mean, for everybody that is also in that relegation battle, seeing Graham Potter go to Chelsea has to make a lot of people smile, because Brighton's not going to be able to keep that level of form up without him. No way.
All right, let's turn our attention to up north and go up and visit the land of enchantment and welcome in our favorite newlywed, Celtic Cam. How goes it, sir?
Good, thank you. How are you guys?
Still enjoying marital bliss?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
That'll change.
Once you guys hit 10 years, then it finally gets easy.
Oh, okay. So,
that's what Los told me when I hit 10 years. So thank you, Los.
Yes.
Start counting down the days.
Yeah, try and make it through the first one first.
Yeah.
Oh man, let's start with this. Instead, we can officially welcome Cam to the club. He now gets the fun of enjoying VAR. VAR has come to the Scottish Premiership.
Yeah, it has. That's for sure.
I'm sorry. Even though VAR has benefited Arsenal a lot this year.
You now get to use Celtic Cam. Now get to be welcome to the club where you can agonize over stupid VAR decisions and lengthy delays that are absolutely pointless with refs that communicate absolutely nothing to you. That said, we will say that VAR came into immediate effect in, one of the more interesting games of the season that saw Celtic run out 4-3 winners over Hearts.
Yeah, it was as you've kind of alluded to, there was VAR was brought into action in the game, and an incredibly poor decision. And I obviously don't want to sound like one of those people who's just lamenting over how poor VAR is because it's VAR. Looking at this, it was a handball actually, by, I think it was Michael Smith of Hearts, and it was very clear. It was very clear to anyone watching, anyone on the pitch, anyone at the grounds, and it, VAR ruled that it wasn't a handball. The ref didn't even review it. So I think a lot of people are asking questions about how legitimate this, implementing VAR in the Scottish Premier League is going to be, if it's going to be beneficial or if it's just going to be a detriment. So, we've already seen that it may not be all it's cracked up to be, at least, in Scotland for sure.
Now, Rangers had the week from, I guess the week, you can call it the week from hell, getting absolutely tonked by Liverpool and then dropping points to Livingston. So not only are they pretty much officially, not that we thought out, but they're done. Their time in Europe will end in the group stages of the Champions League, not to move on any further than that. And they have given Celtic the opportunity to open up a 4-point gap at the top of the table, which when you look at Celtic's form through the first 11 games, 10 wins and that shock draw, and a pretty solid win over Rangers earlier, they have left themselves with some work to do.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I mean, you alluded to their European form. They're actually on track right now to have the worst European record in history, in all of UEFA. I think it actually is. So that's between, the Champions League, Europa, and I guess Conference League. So you're absolutely right. They've looked, poor form in Europe. Granted, I think Celtic, I can't say too much there. We've missed some pretty clutch opportunities in Europe. But yeah, Rangers have they're slipping. There's a lot of questions being asked about Gio right now. Of course, as soon as Gerard was ousted today, you saw that, on social media from the Jers fan, we want him back. Let's get him back. This is the time, sort of thing. So, I'd be more than happy for Gerard to come back. I think that'd be great for Celtic. Just seeing how his form has been over the past few months. But yeah, they've had a really rough week. They've widened that gap for us. And their next game's not going to be an easy one. It's against Aberdeen, who are in third. Aberdeen's, Jim Goodwin has done a fantastic job there pushing them up. So I think it's going to be, based on their recent form and how well Aberdeen's been doing, I think it's going to be a difficult challenge for them next game. And I think, there's a decent chance they could lose points there too.
You absolutely read my mind, because right where I was going after I talked about Rangers was this Aberdeen team that was so abject last year. Started off the season pretty poorly, but then has just seemed to come on like barn burners, climbing all the way up the table now to third.
Yeah, they've been playing absolutely fantastic in their past this season overall, actually. And we've talked about this in the past, how they had some pretty serious management issues that was causing a lot of friction with the players and things like that. They brought in Jim Goodwin, who was he was a previous St. Mirren player, and I believe he was also a previous St. Mirren coach, played for, I want to say, Ireland or Northern Ireland. So a pretty decently established footballer. But he's come in, he's righted the ship, he's organized his team much better. His transfer window was pretty minimal, which I think says a lot about the skills that he has. So I think it's been really impressive to watch Goodwin be able to bring this Aberdeen team back up to where they're kind of used to be, they're used to being, which is in that kind of third, fourth area. So, I've been very impressed with Aberdeen's form. I think their football is very fast paced, which I think, as we've seen from Ange Postecoglou, what he's done with Celtic is something that does work in the Scottish game, which people didn't really think would. But I think, Goodwin may be emulating a little bit of what Postecoglou's done with his team management.
It has been a little bit of a tough road recently for Hearts, the losers on the weekend. They had been in third throughout much of the first part of the season, and they kind of slid down the table. How much has this experience in Europe cost them in terms of league standing this year?
Yeah, I think Hearts is a good example of a team that, in their league can do well, but being kind of pulled two different directions, being up that high in the table in Scotland, plus trying to play in Europe, I think it showed that there is definitely some stress there. I do have to give credit, though, to Lawrence Shankland. He's a striker for Hearts. For the first time in 37 years, he scored a hat trick when we just played. So, there is quality of players on that team. I just think, they don't have a deep bench. The players playing between Europe and domestic games, I think they just really ran out of steam. They don't have the same kind of depth of players that they can pull on that Celtic and Rangers, even Aberdeen or Hibs have. I really think they just got burned out and exhausted, and it's had an effect both on Europe and domestically.
I'm going to be real honest. It has not been pretty for the Scottish teams in Europe.
Yeah.
Celtic, I think their group went a little bit sideways on them in ways that we didn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
They failed to capitalize on a couple of early opportunities where I think they were very, very competitive, and had an opportunity, at least initially, maybe to pick up a point against Real Madrid. That went by the wayside. Had an opportunity to get a win against Shakhtar Donetsk. That did not happen. RB Leipzig had made a coaching change by the time they played them. They faced a much different team. Let a couple of opportunities go there. But on the whole, it has not been good, right? You have three teams in Europe who have played a combined 12 games with a record of 1 win, 1 draw, and 10 losses. Celtic currently have a goal differential of -7. The Rangers, as you mentioned, have a goal difference of -15. Where is it failing for Scotland in Europe? I've talked to you about the need for Celtic, especially to find themselves in the latter stages of a European competition and be playing in Europe after January. And I've stressed for all the years that you and I have been talking about the need for them to be playing European soccer in some competition after January, in February, in March. But man, this foray into the Champions League and Europa Conference League just has been bad for Scotland. How do they turn it around? Is it even possible that they can turn this around after this?
Yeah, no, you're right. This has been a pretty depressing European campaign, I think, for any team that's been in Europe from Scotland. I mean, I can point out straight away Celtic, just for whatever reason, as soon as you get into Europe, as you kind of alluded to, we played well against Real Madrid, defensively at first, and then the midfield played really well. We just cannot seem to finish in Europe. We just cannot seem to, when we're in that last, kind of 18 yards towards the goal, we can hit anything but, the net seemingly when we get down there. And I don't know why, because domestically, as you mentioned, we've been doing well. I don't know what's going on necessarily with the finishing capabilities for Celtic in Europe, but overall, I think that's something that we've seen even with Rangers. I mean, I'm trying to think if they've even scored a goal in the Champions League at this point.
They have scored 1.
Okay. So they've got 1, but there we see again, they're just not that finishing ability, not taking chances. I don't know if it's a confidence thing, playing against some of these bigger teams, Hearts as well, losing to teams actually much smaller than even. You're absolutely right. It's been a really, really disappointing campaign overall for Scotland, and it's not good to see, especially after how many teams we originally had in Europe this year. So, I'm hoping that come next season, at least Celtic is able to build that confidence up, able to kind of lock up that finishing ability and be able to take it back to Europe, hopefully under Ange Postecoglou, and be able to really make a difference next time. So
Yeah, it's a story of a couple of different situations, with Hearts having not had the experience in Europe and being a small squad that's stretched multiple ways, maybe not necessarily able to compete. Celtic, they've had the European experience for a long time, maybe not in the Champions League, having not been in the group proper, I believe, for about 10 years now, 8 years, I believe, right?
Yeah, yep.
Ange just needs to figure out again how to manage at that level in Europe and focus on getting some sort of European success.
Yeah, I think as well, you make a really good point there. That kind of there's a lot of players that we have playing that never played in Europe before. We've got a large number of players from Japan. We've got guys that have played in other leagues throughout Europe, but they've never made it to this sort of stage before. And I think you make a really good point there that they may just not have that, kind of confidence to play in Europe on a stage that size. So
it's tough. Those European nights are interesting, getting ready. The games come at a slightly different time. You're looking at playing at 7 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, which could be 8-9 o'clock depending on when you're playing. It's a different body rhythm. It's a different showing up, going into places where, like Leipzig, going into places like Real Madrid. Those are some very different environs. And I understand it. I just believe fundamentally a club of Celtic size, with the domestic dominance that they have had over the course of the last decade plus, needs to be able to translate that to take the next step and find some sort of European success. And by that, I mean advance and make a deep run in Europe. I think the biggest thing that is lacking, and one of the biggest recruitment issues that they have monetarily, and everything wise is getting a team into the latter stages of a European competition. Like you saw, if Celtic could have done what Rangers did last year
Yeah.
and make it to a semi, just where they would be in terms of confidence, in terms of ability, in terms of recruitment monetarily,
Yeah.
I think it would have been a completely different bird going into this, but yet it's, you know, group stage out, group stage
Right.
first knockout round out.
Yeah.
And not always to teams that I think that they should have lost to.
Yes.
And a lot of times I think that we've had issues. Neil Lennon had it, Brendan Rodgers had it, now Ange has it, and finding somebody who can come in, Ronnie Delia couldn't beat a barn. He was awful.
Yeah.
But finding somebody who can come in and get them into a place where they can make it into, I think that that team needs to find itself in the conversation with a last eight. And I'll be honest, I mean, I don't think that it necessarily needs to be. Oh, it'd be great if they made it to the last eight of the Champions League. That might be a bridge too far for a club of their stature right now.
Sure.
Right? We're not talking '07 when they actually made it to that stage of the competition, right?
Right.
The Lisbon Lions have been gone for 60 years, my friend.
Yeah.
But going into the last eight of even the Europa Conference League, I think would be beneficial for them right now in terms of their coefficient and in terms of the exposure that they would get, right? The amount of exposure that they're getting on Paramount Plus and Paramount right now, because CBS having the Scottish has been great. People talking more about Celtic, but you need to be in Europe, and I know you understand exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. It's just as you say, just being there is important, whether it's, getting people watching you or, getting that bit of cash from each advance that you make. I mean, that's game changing for a team like ours. For some teams, for the bigger teams, that's, a season maybe. For us, that's years and years, seasons and seasons of extra, finance that we can use for better players and slowly build our foundation up as a much stronger team in Europe. So you're absolutely right. It's incredibly important, both for that exposure and for sure the financial element of continued forward progress for a club like Celtic.
All right, so you already gave us, and I find it hard to argue this. Rangers hosting Aberdeen at Ibrox, probably the game of the week, and in Scotland. Outside of that, what should I be looking for this weekend from the Scottish Premiership?
Yeah, so we've got second and third, as you mentioned, Rangers and Aberdeen playing, and then we've got fourth and fifth, Hibs and St. Mirren playing, which is looking to be a good game. St. Mirren has been surprisingly good this season. Hibs have really pulled it together, in the past month or two. So I think that's going to be the other game. So there's, really two big top of the table games this on Saturday. The other one, which I'm already ruining, is Celtic at Livingston at the old Tony Macaroni Arena. As we know, Livingston seems to be the dark horse, the unseen thorn in the sides of many a football team, not excluding Rangers in their last game. So I'm not really looking forward to that one too much, but hopefully, again, following on the domestic form, we're able to overcome Livingston. But I would say the Hibs St. Mirren game is big one, Rangers Aberdeen, and then the Livingston Celtic one I think will be good.
Going down a level, there's a battle at the bottom of the table in the championship between two of our favorite teams. But Arbroath coming up with a win over Hamilton.
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, the Ackies, again, they're a professional club in the championship, and Arbroath, beating them. You love to see it. You love to see it.
I have come to the conclusion that Arbroath will not recreate the greatness that was last year.
Yeah.
But is this a step in the right direction to at least hanging around in the championship where you're playing week in, week out with, pretty professional teams?
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly do think it is. I think as we saw last season, Arbroath were able to change tactics pretty quickly based upon the team they were playing and, able to make it as far up as they did. I'm hoping because, they still have a very similar team to what they did last season, that this is a good learning point and they may have found their kind of heel on the rock wall here, so to say, and are able to dig in and hopefully keep themselves safe. As you said, last year that was almost, that was the start of an epic right there. So it's sad to see it not come to fruition, but I think it is a step for them in the right direction. And as I say, it's a lot of the same team from. I don't actually know if they even made any changes really to the team sheet apart from adding people this season. So I'm hoping Arbroath, as I say, is kind of the team I'm now following in the championship. So I hope they do. I hope they do utilize this win.
Now, also, I have learned to like the Scottish Championship just because there are some interesting teams down there. One, in third place, 1 point off the top of the league. Now, Partick Thistle have a game in hand over Inverness, but Queen's Park, the oldest association football team in all of Scotland, sitting there again.
Yep.
They live again.
They're back. It's funny because
Yes.
we have a lot of family that actually, in terms of championship teams, follow them just because of how old they are and the history that they have. I mean, yeah.
That I want to put this in perspective. Queen's Park started playing professional football 2 years after the end of the Civil War.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
They have been playing since 1867. This club is 155 years old. I don't believe that the Cincinnati Reds, which are the oldest professional team in the United States, are that old.
Yeah, they're ancient. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
1870.
Oh wow, okay. So 3-year difference. Okay. Yeah, there's I'm trying to remember if it was Queen's Park Rangers. It was thought that they were the ones that really created football in Scotland. That's kind of the legend that goes along with Queen's Park. So yeah, no, they're an ancient team, and I actually didn't realize they were now at third. I thought Ayr and Dundee were above them.
No, they have since moved up to third. Ayr and Dundee are 2 points behind. Queen's Park, I mean, they're off to a 6-2-4 start. It's not, sorry. Having picked up a 4-0 win on the road at second place Partick Thistle on weekend. So they've got Dundee coming up on Friday. On Friday.
Okay.
So
that'll actually probably be a decent game.
You've got third and fifth, separated by a grand total of 2 points. Ayr is in there, by the way. Ayr has a game in hand over Queen's Park.
Okay.
There. All right, my friend. Good to talk to you as always. We'll get you back on next week to keep us updated on all the great happenings in the land of enchantment that is Scotland. Thank you very much, my friend.
Sounds good. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great one.
Looks at phone pensively. We were supposed to have Rob on, but I'm guessing that he sent a message.
Yeah, Rob sent a message. Rob is currently indisposed, so he is unable to join us this evening. So hope all's well. Shout out to you, Rob. Hopefully our stats aren't too off without you here hanging that stat point in the back. But I'm sure you'll come back and correct us when you need to.
So we will hopefully be welcoming on Larry, the insurance guy, in a little bit to talk of a city. Or did he send a message and say that he wasn't?
No, I haven't heard from Larry. Hopefully Larry will be able to pop on and join us. I'm sure that we can spend some time talking about the fact that Erling Haaland's on pace to score let's
50,
see,
50 some odd
50.
goals.
Yeah, I think he's right. I'm looking at like 58 goals. So,
But that is the story. But this and right on cue.
I mean, look, if JSU scores 17 goals total this season, I'll be ecstatic. And the fact that Erling Haaland passes after 11 games, it's beyond imaginable.
I want to know how many teams will not have a leading scorer that scores 17 goals the entire season.
Right.
I think more than half of the Premiership will
I
not
would say
have,
probably at least 2/3. At least 2/3 will not have. Yeah.
I would think. I think that
Maybe
you may
even maybe even 3/4 of them won't.
Yeah, I think you're going to have a sizable number of Premier League teams that will not have a leading scorer that reaches 20 goals, right?
Especially when you look at the current standings, though, because if you look at the statistics for the Premier League as far as goals are concerned, I mean, is Mitrovic going to get 20 goals this year? I mean, it's possible, but he plays for Fulham. You know, is Ivan Toney going to get 20 goals?
Well,
you know, and those
think,
guys are ranked 3rd and 4th in goals scored. And then after that, it's James Maddison for Leicester. You know, you got the homeboy from Brighton. You got Almiron from Newcastle. So you're not even seeing like the next big 6 player that's on this list after Harry Kane is Phil Foden at 5th, who's tied for 5th with 6 goals, and Roberto Firmino with 6 goals. So,
well, that Roberto Firmino, who never scores, has 6 goals, is very interesting. But this is a thing that you need to look at, which is, and we see this in sports. Do you want to be? You have. And this has nothing to do with Manchester City. Let's put them to the side. They're a different aberration. But you're going to have teams where you're going to have, you know, maybe 3 or 4 guys who are in that high single digits, mid-range double digits, sort of thing, versus a team like Fulham. Mitrovic may score 20 goals by himself. The whole team, the whole season may score 40. Right. So every other player on that roster not named Mitrovic may score as many goals as he does. The same with Brentford and Ivan Toney.
Yeah.
He may score 20, 21 goals. Brentford themselves may only score 38.
Yep, exactly.
And some teams are set up to be like, we have 1 goal scorer. This is the guy that scores all of our goals. Where I think a lot of things have gone now is, you know, the interchangeable attack, you know, even so. You know, look at Liverpool last year. 2 guys in the finals of the Golden Boot race. You know, both with over 20 goals. But that's how Klopp wants it. Because if you stop one, there's another one that scores.
Right. Yeah. If one goes down, you're still set. You still got somebody to put the ball in the net. Yeah.
That is certainly not the case with Manchester City. So let's welcome on our good friend, Larry, the insurance guy, to talk a little bit about this. Larry, how many goals is Erling Haaland going to score this season? My prediction is 3,957. I mean, that guy is scoring like a kid in a brothel with a fistful of hundreds.
I think if and the biggest thing is obviously his health. If he stays healthy, I'd say 35, 36. You know, I mean, obviously the basic.
Wow, 35, 36. He's got 17 right now, and they've got
only played 11 games.
There's no way that he keeps the pace. You know what I mean? There's no way. I mean, you even. I don't know. I'm saying 35, 36, because if they start getting to a point where he's got I know he's young. I mean, you know what? Let me back to. I mean, it might be more because he's not playing the World Cup. He's going to be sitting and relaxing. You know, so It all comes down to health with him. I mean, it really does. You don't know what
All
you're
right.
going to get later in the stages.
All right, gentlemen. I'm going to set the over/under on 40. 40 would absolutely obliterate the record for a 38-game season.
That's why I say
40 would.
lower. That's why I say
All
lower
right.
than that. Had some prolific scorers in the Premier League that have played the whole year and still only got Salah whenever he only had 32. It's only 32, but it's still like, I don't know.
I mean, this would be, and instead we are watching, and I know that there have been guys that have scored more, right? I'm not gonna lie, but the Bundesliga and La Liga are different.
They're different, yeah.
They're different in the way that they play. Me watching Erling Haaland get to 40 is the equivalent of me watching Aaron Judge hit 62 in the baseball season. If you can go for the course of a 38-game Premier League season scoring at 1+ goals a game, you have had the equivalent of a 60 home run season. And I'm not going to lie about that. I'm going to stand by that one. This is Gretzky and over the 100 goals. This is that sort of thing that we're watching right now. So, gentlemen, I'm going to set the over/under at 40. I think he goes over 40.
I think he goes over 40. Yeah, I do.
I think under.
Under?
Not by much. I mean, I think maybe 38, 30, between 35 and 39.
35 to 39 would still be a record. 35 to 39 would still put him in between high .9s and 1 goal a game, which I think sets a scoring record that will not be that'll be very interesting.
Yeah.
Let's just put it this way, because right now he is just you see this combination, Larry, of the perfect player in the perfect time with the perfect team, the perfect coach, and it is the full fruition, I think, of what Pep wanted to go in. And to think, Stead, that I had questions about whether or not Erling Haaland and Pep would be able to come together to form an effective partnership. I mean, it is absolutely
Not alone.
ridiculous.
We all thought it was going to take time.
It has been absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
I guess that's the only thing that we can talk about. Now we're welcoming Matt, Coach Matt, the Man United fan. Haven't seen him in a while, and we'll get to him a little bit later. Matt, we're talking about Erling Haaland and his scoring record right now, and we set the over/under at 40 goals. Do you think he gets over 40 this season?
You're muted.
Yeah, he's halfway there. So
Larry said 35, 36 goals. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Well, that's typical me. I'm the only Manchester City fan on here, and I'm probably saying he's going to score the lowest.
Well, I think
let's put
Larry
it this way:
learned.
if he doesn't, it's disappointing. So, couldn't live up to.
I think he scores 41 goals. That's what I think. I think he's going to get 41 goals.
I think it's 42. Just to spite you.
Yeah, that Price is Right moment, right? $1 higher.
45. He's going to go up.
45.
I think he gets 45. I think he gets 45.
Is this PL goals or?
Yeah, just Premier League goals.
Just Premier League goals.
And I'll also say this, I'll say if he's able to stay healthy, not play every game.
Yeah.
If he's just able to stay healthy, I think there's no way he gets under 40. Yeah.
If
he gets hurt, then I think we got to throw this out. If he gets hurt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and Larry brought up a good point, because he will not be playing in the World Cup, right? He's one of the few. Now, Larry, I did some checking. Manchester City can send a maximum, can potentially send up to 17 players to the World Cup.
Probably 9 of them could be in the Final Four.
Yeah. And Pep has said, was asked a question, with the World Cup roster set to be announced in the next couple of weeks, How does he feel about rotation, saving guys for the World Cup, presenting injuries? And he was basically very adamant about, if I think somebody's loafing, trying to avoid playing, trying not to get injured, I'm going to play my starting 11. If I feel like you're holding back, I'm not going to play you, but I'm not going to play you before the World Cup, and I'm not going to play you after either.
Yeah.
So, again, we see this full bore hell for leather, all or nothing Pep going into this with, and Stead and I were talking about this earlier. You've got these third round EFL Cup games coming up. You've got a couple of dead rubbers in the Champions League. It's perfect time to rotate a couple of guys out. Know that you've got this World Cup coming up. You're sending 17 of your first team players over to the World Cup. They're going to come back and have to play 2 games a week from December until May. Is this finally the year that Pep gives up the ghost of the quadruple and says, screw this EFL Cup, I'm just going out, I'm going to send my U21 team out and let it go and save my guys for competitions that matter?
Should he? Absolutely. Will he? No, he won't. I mean, I could see him playing. He's already started rotating in people like, the likes of like Rico Lewis, Wilson Esbrand, Cole Palmer seeing a lot more time now. They'll play more, but people again, I get frustrated sometimes whenever I see De Bruyne out there longer than he should be. Or Bernardo plays every single second of every single game, it seems like, and they're so deep too that you're going to see players that would be first team that are going to be in the World Cup. They're going to be playing, but I to answer your question, no, he's not going to back off. He puts the strongest team out there. They might not play the whole game, but he's going to put him out there.
All right, my friend. Well, it was great to talk to you. We'll get you back next week. Talk a little bit more Man City. Have a good one, my friend.
See you, boys.
Take care. Now, Matt, I've got to welcome on one of the happiest guys that I know right now. Chelsea Mike, I understand that it was a draw this weekend, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But man, brother, this has been a good weekend. This has been a good weekend.
I was going to say I'm a Philadelphia sports fan. I got everything I wanted except Chelsea didn't beat Man U. I mean, yes, true Philly are in the Eastern Conference Finals in the MLS. True, the Philadelphia Eagles are undefeated still. True, we're in the World Series, but we didn't beat Man U. So, I mean, there's something to complain about, and that's the Philadelphia way.
We didn't beat Chelsea, but the Union are in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Eagles are unbeaten, and the Phillies are in the World Series. Dude, I'm happy. Gentlemen, it was an interesting game this Saturday in so many different ways. Mike, I'm not going to lie. That first half, I thought Man United dominated. They were lucky to get in at 0-0.
Oh,
it was
man, you should have scored.
Yeah, it was complete penalty on Scott McTominay, and that was a complete and total BS. And but the game ends with a draw. On the strength of things, I thought Man United were a better team. I'm happy to get out with the draw because it was Chelsea that scored the first goal very, very late. So I'll start with you, Mike. Give me your impressions of that game.
Honestly, it was kind of boring, really. I mean, it was first of all, it was a tale of two halves, right? Man U should have scored in the first half. Rashford needs to put away one of those chances somewhere. But coming back out in the second, I mean, they put on Kovacic in the first half. That's how bad they were doing in the first half of that game. But, you know, they came out, Chelsea was a little bit brighter in the second half. I think the penalty was a penalty. I think if he had reached around with his single arm and grabbed him and impeded his progress that way, he would have been fine. But when he reached the second arm out and joined them, that's when it was a penalty.
Oh, and don't forget when he reached the second hand out, joined them, and then started humping his leg.
Yeah,
Then
it was a penalty.
They started calling that a lot in the 2018 World Cup. We saw lots of PKs do that, and I was kind of upset that they went away from that, because even as someone who played central defense, I can tell you that is extraordinarily frustrating. I mean, you can't just grab and tackle a player to the ground. And they stopped calling that penalty by defenders the last few years. So when I saw it called, I said, well, good, it should be. It did, granted, as I said earlier in the show, it didn't happen because I think Gabriel just wasn't in a set piece. But in a set piece, you have the ability to establish position prior to the ball being kicked. You should not be grabbing and tackling players. And so, but if they're not going to call it, it's just going to keep happening. Make the call. It was a penalty. I mean, I thought it was a dumb play by McTominay. He should have done it.
I guess I'm going to argue it like the other way. Like, it happens. Like, for me, the issue is consistency. Like, I'm telling you, like,
but I'm going to cut you off, Matt, because that is a much bigger conversation that we could do for a lot of other particular penalties. Because you are right, it is lack of consistency, but they have to call that penalty. It's a penalty.
Like, my issue is that, like, there were two other occasions too, like by both sides, in which there were players being held on like set plays in that game in like a similar fashion. I also went back and like Broha is like falling down before he's even touched. Like, he's leaning forward. I don't want to like argue it, but it's not that I don't think it's a penalty. I just, again, we're going to like go into consistency. And my biggest gripe is, really, you're going to choose the 84th minute to like basically determine the game. Like, that's when you're going to be like, all right, I'm going to call out like that one. That's just like my issue with it. Is like the ref, I thought the ref was like just awful on both sides, period. And it's been something with refereeing in general in the PL. Like, I think we've been talking about it. But just
I'm shocked to learn that refereeing is inconsistent. I'm shocked to learn that we are disappointed by the standard of refereeing in Premier League games. But the fact of the matter was that it was called, and I'm shocked. It was called. It was a penalty. It deserved to be called. It was, and let's not argue that it was a dumb play.
Yeah.
On Scott McTominay's part, because he was outmaneuvered by the guy that he was supposed to be guarding. And it's the same thing that I see all the time in NFL football and holding calls, when you make a wrong move to start and then you have that oh crap moment. And you just hope that, because what he knew that he was wrong. He was just praying that he got away with it.
Yeah.
I think it's a little distant. Broha is the nearest man to the corner, right?
Yeah.
So he's himself isolated. If he wasn't isolated like that, that might not get called.
Yeah, I think
that's because he was coming around to the front and was just wide open out there.
I think if that ball goes far post, like we could even argue it. It's like, yeah, like maybe, if it was a foul too, like, and we might have be discussing like, why wasn't that called? I think you're dead on. Like, the isolation is like what really brought it under another magnifying glass. And again, like, I just think that goes with consistency of like, does that mean like moving forward that the only way that's going to get called is if it's like right at the player who is the nearest to the ball? I don't know.
I think the lesson is this.
Don't
One
hold.
arm impeding the runner, okay. Second arm, maybe. When they join,
They hug. Yeah,
That-
you can't join.
it's
Cannot
gonna be a
interlock
penalty.
fingers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that was a thing that you saw on VAR that made that even more of a thing. But Matt, I will say the one thing that I saw this time around that I hadn't seen in a long time was that determination of United after that 84th minute goal to go back down and get something out of this game.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that I had seen that sort of determination since Ferguson. This was the response, this was the mental toughness, this was the everything that Eric Ten Hag had been preaching that had fallen by the wayside for so long.
Yeah.
And you can start to see in the performances these last couple of weeks. They're not the finished article, but we can start to see the little lessons that are going on and how they're working.
Yeah.
And it gives me a certain amount of confidence.
Yeah. I mean, the team's buying in, Mike. I mean, there's a great clip of like right after Jorginho scores the penalty, Ten Hag is talking with Bruno Fernandes, and he's saying, tell Shaw and Dalot they've got to go wide and we have to push up. And what is it, like 4 minutes later, Shaw's whipping in that cross that goes to Casemiro, and then that's the goal. And I feel like with our other coaches, there wouldn't have been that much. Like, I don't want to say there wouldn't be that much buy-in, but I don't think they would even have that much of like a tactical, like kind of like a switch or like push forward. It's like, all right, guys, everyone's going to push up. You would just see kind of like, let's try to throw the kitchen sink and try everything. And we would get frustrated as fans as if like we look out of ideas, but it's more just like people are panicking. Whereas we push forward in a controlled manner, almost as if like, you know what, in the first half, we were the better team. And like, I think we felt that we were, at least like team belief wise, they felt that they're like, we are the better team on this field right now. Like, let's go ahead and get that goal. And we haven't seen that in 7 years, 8 years. So yeah, I mean, it was encouraging to see.
Gentlemen, this leaves us in a position where I'm looking at several teams that I all think are relatively around the same place. And you know what? Instead, we talked about this earlier. I think outside right now of City, Larry, you got to acknowledge the fact that I think that City could be and will be the eventual Premier League champions. Instead, based on the start that Arsenal has, I think they got money in the bank when it comes to Champions League qualification. That gives us 2 positions. That leaves us with Chelsea, United, Newcastle, Tottenham, and Liverpool.
It's crazy.
All fighting for 2 more Champions League positions. And so that's 5 teams, 2 Champions League positions, and ostensibly 2 Europa League positions. Somebody's going to get left without a seat. And when I look at all of these teams, gentlemen, I see varying degrees of imperfection. Well, I talked about the fact that I think, Liverpool have probably the most talent and the most capability, but I think they're old. I don't know how they're going to hold up long term. Newcastle are still a work in progress. I am not 100% sure what is going on with Spurs right now. They have not looked good, but that is that the ebbs and flows of a season. Are they going to make a move away from Antonio Conte, which seems likely given his comments and David Levy's bend on things? And, I'll be honest, I'd be surprised right now, given the way things are going at Spurs, if Conte sees it through the January window. Graham Potter might just got started at Chelsea, but this is a team that's just constructed very, very weirdly. And I'm not sure he knows what to do with it. And then Matt United, that is very much a work in progress. We can see where the holes are on that team. So my question is, gentlemen, it's a game of musical chairs. Who's going to be left without one? Instead, I'll start with you.
I probably Newcastle. I just probably Newcastle. I don't think that they are quite there yet. I think that they are they've got this momentum that they built up over the past half a season once they got new ownership, got Eddie Howe in there. Eddie Howe's a damn good manager. But they've made some moves, but still their leading scorer is Miguel Almiron. He's still their leading scorer. So I'm glad. It's not he's got more than Gabriel Jesus does, but I'm just saying I still feel like they're having to work out some cogs in the machine before they can really get rolling. So I would think that I could see Newcastle dropping some points a little bit, especially after the World Cup break. I could see them hitting some fatigue and then them trying to kind of work out what they're going to do. I see them being the odd one out. But I'm going to preface that by saying, if Newcastle were to sneak in, it's primarily due to the fact that they don't have to play any European games. So you could see they're the only one of the teams that you select that is not playing Europe. So I could see a team that possibly gets a little beat up and then actually falls out. And to be honest, I hate to say this, but I could even see the team being Arsenal. I could see it being Arsenal. So I'm just saying though, if Newcastle were to sneak in, I think that's what's going to happen for them to be able to do so. They just have fewer games to play. But I could see Newcastle also saying, you know what, let's just put all of our money in the FA Cup and try to make a deep run there. I could see them trying to do that too.
All right, Matt, who do you think at the end of the season gets left without a chair?
Based on right now, it's got to be Spurs. Like they're just getting wiped. It was like a 2-0 game against us, but I mean that was the best we've looked in a long time. And I do think part of it is us, but I think the Newcastle game showed Spurs they're not a good team right now. Like they are all over the place. I think their players really did buy into the preseason. I mean, there was all those pictures about how hard Conte was working, but it's not clicking for them. And in those types of systems, like a counter-attacking defensive system in which you really have to grind out things, players are willing to do that as long as they're winning. As soon as they don't win, that gets old very quickly because you're not playing the free flow style that a player wants to play. So I think you're right. I don't also want to sound like, because this is the giant gorilla or elephant in the room, is this World Cup is going to just make it's just a wrench. It's so random. It's
gonna screw everything up.
But that's why I'm putting it out before the World Cup, because we know that that's a giant wedge. We know that that's the gorilla in the room, and the fun thing to do is to look at it right now.
Yeah.
And say what's going to happen afterwards. We know that the World Cup is going to change everything. And Matt, we just lost Rafael Varane probably until the World Cup starts. And who knows what that's going to be. Larry's saying he's calling the World Cup as his excuse now for why City failed. And it's not an excuse because everybody's got to deal with it to a certain degree.
Yeah, I think this is something that we can probably discuss more at length as we get closer, because I think this is going to be an actual it's going to be a real issue. I really think it is. And I mean, I think it's sad is that I'm going to be watching this World Cup hoping that the teams that have Arsenal players bow out. I really am.
Everybody is, and
Yeah.
but I want to see how things change as we are talking right now. We know the World Cup is coming up. We don't know what the World Cup is going to be. Mike, who's going to be left without a seat?
Oh, good question, right? Well, take a look at it, right? And take a look at the standings as there are. With Newcastle having new billionaire owners, there's essentially a top 7 in English football. Fulham is upsetting the top 7 right now by like a point.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what you're going to look at from now until forever. Are these same 7 teams at the top forever? And if your team is good enough to make Europe, they will. But I mean, if your team is good enough to make the Champions League, they will. If they're not, they're not. What team is not good enough to make the Champions League right now? I think the top 4 at the end of the season are thus: City, Arsenal, Chelsea, and United. I think that they're the best teams right now. I would say Liverpool. Because Liverpool is kind of creeping away. But the reason I don't is there's a lot more excuses this year, and there's not the hope or optimism. I'm not getting a lot of hope or optimism from my Liverpool friends, where usually there's abundance of that, which is very annoying and I hate. But they're not coming with the forward thing. I think they have a Sadio Mane size hole in their team, and they're not a top 4 team because of it. I think
And
that
isn't it great that they don't have hope? It's just like the best thing to see.
Oh,
Like,
it's
just
wonderful
amazing.
to watch.
Like, oh, just slowly bleed. It's great. After all these years of happiness, just go back to what you used to be.
The dichotomy
really
between
quick.
beating City and losing to Forest, like watching the tone of conversation. Just diminish. But I mean, Forest have so many guys, right?
I
that
know.
they're going to win eventually, right? Like they're going to outlast teams with the breadth of their team.
I want to make the bold prediction that Newcastle is going to finish ahead of Liverpool, which means it's not going to happen. But like you said, you were talking about how like Almiron is Newcastle's best scorer right now. They've had like their best player is like, who would probably walk into probably almost all of our teams is Saint-Maximin, and he's been out for the last 4 games.
Right, that's true.
And they're rolling. Like they're rolling over.
I was hyping Almiron up earlier in the show. I think he's playing fantastic.
No, but I'm just saying like
they're
they're finding ways to win, but not even just like that. I know it was 2-1 versus Spurs, but they were just better. Like they're better than Spurs. They're like beating teams by multiple margins. I'll say the only game where I thought that, and I'm not trying to, again, toot our own horn. I think the only game that I've really watched of them where I don't think that they deserved to get a result was against us. Like they had this is why I'm so adamant about the Chelsea penalty thing, was just because we had 2 blatant penalties in ours that in that game against Newcastle just wasn't called. But it's not just about that. It's like they're coming together as a team, and Eddie Howe he's just doing such a great job there, man. And like, he's really got that team believing. And I think, I don't know, like with that Liverpool team, I really like Mike was saying, I don't even think it's just the fans. I think the players are starting to get, they're lacking that belief. Like if they don't get off to a good start, they're really grinding and like running through sand during games. And it just doesn't look good.
Newcastle's set up too. I mean, you've got a guy like Chris Wood, who's kind of been an underrated player. He's a consistent Premier League striker. They've got him coming off the bench to play like an old-fashioned number 9 when they need it. They're set up. It's a well-done team. And I actually get them more than I get Chelsea. So I mean, yeah, I don't see Newcastle dropping, and Liverpool are really going to have to fight. It's going to take a drop from a team like United or Chelsea, who are laden with inconsistencies. I mean, Chelsea win 2 enormous matches in the Champions League and then draw twice, once with Brentford. It's that lack of consistency that's most frustrating as a Chelsea fan right now.
All right, gentlemen, let's we're gonna close out the show with this though, but we do need to get to it. We are now at the conference finals of MLS. It is a rematch of last year, Mike. This Sunday.
Yeah.
NYCFC and Philadelphia Union once again versus down in Super Park. I think the Union are coming in with a chip on the shoulder. They saw not only did NYCFC beat them on their home patch last year in a game that they closely contested that you and I watched when they were down bare bones due to 8 first-team COVID losses. But then they saw them go on and win the MLS Cup, and I feel like they very, very much felt like that was theirs.
Felt like that to me. And I mean, I think what's going to happen in the Eastern Conference Final on Sunday, well, are they going to infect us with COVID again? Because if they can't do that, then we're going to win. I mean, the Union beat NYCFC twice this year, and that was back at the beginning of the season when they were full, a full side. The Union rolled towards the end of the year. NYCFC did not. They've looked good in the playoffs so far, but I'm not going to lie to you. As a Union supporter, right here, and Philly's rolling, right? We're all happy for all our sports. It's going to be a really tough loss if we lose to NYCFC this year. They should go on and win. And that's not just me. That's me as an objective soccer analyst. That's not me being a homeboy. Because last year I thought we were going to win, and that was me being a homeboy. But this year, we've got Blake in goal. That dude's a monster. He was a monster in that game in Cincinnati.
They beat Cincinnati, who was one of the few teams that they didn't actually beat during the regular season. We kind of knew that might be one. Like, if there is a scoreline that the Philadelphia Union love in the playoffs, it's 1-0. That's the one that they do best, and they love that, and that's where they're going to go. I don't think that this is going to be a 1-0 scoreline. I actually think that Jim Curtin is going to have the guys motivated if he needed to motivate them beyond what their motivation already is. There's a lot of guys on that team that didn't get a chance to play on the home patch last year against NYCFC, and Blake, Bedoya, a bunch of them who are going to be all out to go out and do that. I'm seeing this one as a 3-1 game. Union win, advance to the MLS Cup Finals, and the question becomes then who would they play? Now we've got a very interesting matchup on the other side in the form of LAFC and Austin. I saw this game a couple of months ago, and I recall it being something in the neighborhood of 3-0. But the difference was that was in Austin. This one will be in LA. LAFC is going to count on their big name players. They brought in Gareth Bale. They brought in Carlos Vela. They brought in all of these players to win this game, to win these next 2 games. Do you think it comes good for LAFC? It all comes together. They're able to get over the hump, beat Austin, a team that absolutely just drilled them a couple of months ago.
Well, that's kind of been the narrative the whole season, hasn't it? It's been building LAFC versus Philly, coming up to meet each other at the end. It's going to be an epic MLS.
Yeah, but I was also sold on the Yankees versus the Dodgers in the World Series, and I'm getting the Phillies and the Astros. So don't give me the narrative is built, but that's not the way things end up.
Very happy to disappoint you there on the baseball front. But I also think that there's a really big risk for LA. We saw them get destroyed by Austin, and it sort of made you question whether or not they were pretenders, right? Like they got beat down by Austin so bad that it made you think, are these guys even the number one seed in the West anymore?
And then they backslid into the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's helped that they have to play a game less because they were the Supporters Shield winners. But, this one is, does LAFC have the capacity to get revenge on an Austin team that's probably a lot better than I thought they actually were?
Yeah. Well, the short answer to that question is yes. Of course, they have the talent. They brought it in. They're supposed to be the best team, and they looked like they were the best team until they faced Austin and made us all question it. I think Austin is the interceptor here. The Austin is the Patriot missile to the Union LAFC scud that's been coming together for forever. I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna give Austin 2-1 away in LA, and the MLS Cup will be in Philly, and it won't be like this. I'm with you. 3-1 this weekend. I won't exactly be like that if Philly faces Austin, or frankly, if NYCFC faces Austin. I think LA look kind of like tired or done. They just don't have the energy. They didn't exactly dominate the traffic out there.
I think it's 2-2. Austin FC wins. I'm going to say 6-5 on penalties. Austin FC and Philadelphia Union at Subaru Park for MLS Cup, and we will talk about that one when and if it occurs. Mike, give us before we head out for the evening, give us a quick roundup on the Women's Super League and what we should be looking for in European women's soccer.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you Women's Super League this time. I'm going to give you Women's Champions League.
Go for it.
Time. On Wednesday, in Chelsea's group, we have Chelsea will play Vlasnia, who are the Albanian champions. They do have some international players there. They're actually kind of sneaky good in this group of death in the Women's Champions League. But Wednesday, 12:45 Eastern time, you have Real Madrid versus Paris. All Women's Champions League games are available on DAZN on YouTube, so it's free. But Real Madrid versus Paris, they're the number 2 sides in each of their confederations, or each of their countries, and they've both been to semifinals pretty recently. They're both very good teams. PSG lacks from not having Marie Antoinette Katoto, but all in all, that's the game of the week worldwide for the women, except of course for our own NWSL final, which is this Sunday.
All right. So, Stead, this was a lot of fun. I know we ran a little bit over. You'll forgive us. A lot of good conversation, but we touched on a ton of it. I got to thank Coach G, Los, Celtic Cam, Larry the Insurance Guy, Coach Matt making a rare appearance, and of course Chelsea Mike, all for coming on and joining us. And of course, producer Stead for keeping the trains running on time. So for the cast of the Too Many Guys Soccer Show, I'm Mike. We did all right this week. We'll try to do better next week.